Much. Our next dialogue is Reimagining Business Models and Tech Innovation to Combat Inequality, Climate Change, and Other SDGs with Sam Hamilton, Gayathri, Divecha, moderated by Meng Liu. Thank you so much.
Hello, colleagues. Can you hear us? Shall we start?
Sure. This is Sam Hamilton here. Can you hear me?
Great, wonderful. I think we are now all live online. Good to see you. And hello, colleagues and friends. Welcome to the session on reimagining business models to combat inequality, climate change, and other SDGs. I think the topic itself is quite self-explanatory. And in fact, after the launch of the Sustainable Development Goal in 2015 and 5 years into the goals, till today, the biggest challenges we are still facing is on inequality issues and climate change. Obviously, the impact of COVID has really bring us back about some progress that we made over the SDGs. And along with global health equality issues, inequality in many areas, for instance, gender, income, etc., and climate issues, the harmony between human being and our planet are the major challenges faced many stakeholders and every one of us today. And today is really our pleasure to invite and have two distinguished panelists from the private sector, and Sam Hamilton, the SVP of Visa, and Gayathri Divecha, CSR head of Godrej Industries and associate companies from India, join us. My name is Meng Liu, and I work as the regional head for Asia of the United Nations Global Compact, and we are the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative. Around the world, in over 170 countries, we have over 13,000 businesses join us and be part of this journey to make our world a more sustainable and better place. So I want to quickly hand over to Sam and to you to introduce yourself and share probably some preliminary perspectives from you on this very important topic. Sam, over to you.
Thank you, Meng. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends on where you are on the globe. And thank you very much for having me. It's an exciting topic, what technology can do to help UN SDGs. It's a passion for me as well. So I'm very glad to be here. As Meng said, my name is Sam Hamilton. I'm a technologist and I lead the data product development at Visa. Let me start here. I had the privilege of witnessing what is a positive impact education can make and how that will translate into uplifting the societies, uplifting people, and economic empowerment for them, especially on the underserved communities during my childhood. My parents moved to a farming village in the southern part of India when I was 1 year old to take a role to be teachers in a mission school. It was a very small village. And you may remember the India map like a triangle at the bottom. This is actually 50 miles north of the southern tip of India in the state of Tamil Nadu. It is a very small farming community, mainly depends on rain or the monsoon for growing their crops. The rest of the time, they grow some palm trees and make their living out of that. We joke when we were in the village as kids, we have 4 seasons. They are hottest, hotter, hot, and warm, maybe with some rain. The people there work really, really hard, and the children are expected or sometimes forced to work at a very young age. My parents went there to teach the children, and they found out that the attendance is not regular because people have to be pulled to work to augment whatever they have to do. 1 year of missed rain or even too much rain would impact their livelihood for a long time. In the absence of regulated or formal financial institution, they had to borrow from their neighbors, loan sharks, or end up paying a lot of money or losing their properties, or even worse, sometimes very unthinkable things happen there. This is because they did not understand the loan terms or what it would take to pay back, and quite a bit of things that is not aware of things. Translate into they end up working harder, pulling the children and have them work with them as well. So that's not, the children are not able to attend the school. Now my parents, when both of them were teachers in that village, they have to look back and see, how do we fix this problem? They came up and say, hey, we need to help and educate the parents first. We need to help them to manage their finances. And we have to offer some loans, sometimes some micro loan using the meager savings they had. And they had to educate them on health and well-being and realize the value of educating the children so that they can get out of this poverty cycle. And the result now is, here we have a community that is educated with a sustainable future. Today, there are many teachers, scientists, engineers, public administrators, and successful entrepreneurs that hail from that village. This created a lasting impression in my mind. Educating and empowering are great ways to end poverty and enable sustainable growth. I did not know at that time, but today, this maps into many of the sustainable development goals that UN has set. Goal number 1, goal number 4, I can go on until 17. Now, a few years later, after a couple of universities and a couple of companies in the Valley, I came to Visa 6 years ago. And I was drawn to this company because of their commitment to empowering individuals, businesses, and economies to thrive. I didn't quite understand this company did until a couple of years before I joined Visa. I'm sure it's the case for many of us. We are a network connecting 3.3 billion people to more than 70 million merchants and 15,000 financial institutions across 200 territories and markets. That is a global span you can think of. At the heart of Visa lies a technology infrastructure that powers billions of payments every day. Could be the payment that you pay for your coffee in the afternoon in your local coffee shop, or paying millions of dollars to purchase a medical equipment or PPEs from another country. For a technologist, this is a truly exciting space to be in. Knowing the code that you write and the platform that you build plays a vital role in the global economy. It makes the whole world as a global village, if you would, and a small space. This was particularly true during the early days and weeks of the pandemic. When consumers are rushing out to buy groceries, toilet papers, cleaning supplies, hand sanitizers, and much more, using their Visa card, that was a tremendous sense of shared responsibility and meaning for those of us keeping the network running at the time when the world needed it most. Building the technology that serves the engine of global commerce is inspiring. But it is more inspiring and rewarding is Visa's focus for its engine to be the global engine of sustainable commerce. Let me switch over to a little bit on the technology. As a technologist and the leader of Visa's data product development, I'm a big believer in the power of data to drive not just commerce, but also positive impact for communities and economics around the globe. I fondly call it as a data for good. Data has always been at the heart of strategic decision-making. Either you are an individual or a government, financial institutions, or businesses, small or large. Today, it is more true than ever before. Data is playing a critical role in many things, including COVID-19 recovery. As a data scientist, it is exciting to see all the ways the data is being harnessed today to improve outcome for Visa, its clients, and everywhere. And it is really just a beginning, in my opinion. Finally, it is rewarding to see how we bring more people into the financial systems using the data that we have, insights that we can bring, digitizing everyday payments, providing convenience, security, access to all other financial services, and more importantly, financial inclusion for the financial underserved. We are super excited. I'm looking forward to the conversation, learning from you all, and we have a mission that we can all work together, either individuals or corporation, to make this world a better place so that we can not only improve in our goals that we have and a better place to live. Back to you, Meng.
Thank you so much, Sam. I think next time when I'm swiping my Visa card, you will remind me about this very interesting story and very inspirational indeed. And thank you for highlighting the importance of leveraging technology to fill the financial gap and address financial inequality issues. So I think Visa, everybody knows your company, and so let me bring to your attention of another company very important in the other part of the world based in India. So Gayathri, please tell us a little bit maybe about your personal story, that's why you ended up with this company. I know it's a conglomerate, you might be into different business, and why do you join this company and why do you care about corporate sustainability issues?
Yeah, thank you, Meng, and Sam for that wonderful opening, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. It's evening here in Mumbai. So I'm Gayathri Divecha. I head sustainability and social responsibility for a diversified conglomerate in India called Godrej Industries and associate companies. It's an extremely sort of well-entrenched business, one of the most well-known businesses in India. And is a multinational conglomerate which enjoys the patronage of over 4 billion customers globally. So, that being said, the canvas for our sustainability and social responsibility work is also, equally large. I've, to give you a bit of background about myself, I've been a part of the social space really for the past 15 years. Worked at a number of different kinds of organizations that were all at the heart of creating change, either on issues related to social impact, livelihoods, inequality, gender, public health, and environmental sustainability. And one of my key learnings through this journey has been, I've worked at grassroots not-for-profits, worked with a couple of activists, as well as with academia, consulting firms, philanthropists, and most recently corporates. And I think one thing that that I firmly believe in through this experience is that it takes all kinds of institutions and people to create the type of change that we need to see, both in terms of climate as well as closing the inequality gap across nations. This can't happen by any one person alone, by any one government alone, nor by any one company alone. So, really I can't stress the importance of, SDG 17 around a partnership for achieving the sustainable development goals. And my own experiences have shown me without a partnership and collaborative approach, it is impossible to achieve these. I guess my personal inspirations for being a part of this space is, a sense of wanting to leave things better than I found them, right? And make a positive influence. I've been privileged to grow up, in a family where gender issues and stereotypes didn't have any meaning. My dad cooked dinner all the time. He mended our clothes and, stitched holes in our socks when they were torn because my mom doesn't know how to stitch. So, basic things like that. I was privileged to have parents who gave me this worldview, involved me in the kind of voluntary work that they were doing, which exposed me to this and made me conscious at a young age, especially growing up in a city like Bombay, where you have extreme, wealth on one hand. If you look around the cityscape, there are skyscrapers and luxury buildings, and right next to them are shanties and slums where people, are making a daily wage. So growing up in this context really made me, I guess, a little bit more sensitized towards the fact that these inequalities exist. And, I was just as good as anybody else in helping solve them. So I guess that's been the motivation. Cut to working at a large corporate like the Godrej Group. I mean, our involvement and interest and ambition for creating a more equitable and greener world is not something very new. We have a very long history with, in nation building in India. Our company started, within India's freedom movement, and the first profits were actually plowed back to the freedom movement. So it's very much a part of our corporate legacy and philosophy. For many years now, we've maintained the largest privately held tract of mangroves in the country, which is in Vikhroli in Mumbai, and is about 11 times the size of Central Park, to put that in some sort of perspective. And we maintain those mangroves in a rapidly urbanizing country, for public good, because they maintain Bombay's coastal flows and ecosystem balance. So, our focus on sustainability, social impact, and our responsibility as a business dates back to more than a century ago. At the moment, we framed this vision as good and green. That's what captures what we want to do and how we want to be as a business. We have 4 main pillars that we focus on. One being ensuring employability skills to enhance livelihoods for communities that our businesses interact with. We've got a large FMCG, which works on a number of skills training programs for communities across India, from salon skills to entrepreneurship skills and so on. The second pillar really focuses on health and well-being. We run a very large vector control program to help the government of India eliminate malaria by 2030, which is part of the Sustainable Development Goals as well. This is a public-private partnership program where we're strengthening health systems and then responding to communities' awareness and health-seeking behaviors. The third major pillar of our sustainability ambition is to influence sustainable consumption. And that involves ensuring we use plastics that are 100% reusable, recyclable, or biodegradable. We used about 10% of post-consumer recycled waste in our packaging and are aiming to reduce our packaging in 10-25%. Similarly, we're looking at ways in which we can move from a process lens on sustainability. So moving from improvements in our manufacturing, which we've made over the past 10 to 15 years, to now looking at our products and how those can champion sustainability, knowing that a lot of environmental impact does occur in the usage phase and in disposal. So how can we as businesses innovate, use technologies and advances in science in order to ensure that we reduce the type of impact that's created with the usage of our products, as well as with the disposal of them. And then lastly, we aim to sort of lead by example in sustainability, and this includes being carbon neutral, which we're a bit far away from, but getting there, and being water positive, which we are. So we recharge more water into the environment than we draw from it. We're also looking at doing completely circular water processes in our manufacturing. So all water that comes out of a process is purified and can go back into either the same or another process. Similarly, we're looking at, we are zero, and we've committed to the science-based targets, which also fundamentally rest upon the fact on our investments in things like renewable energy and transitioning completely away from coal-fired sources. So that's in a nutshell what we do, to play our part in helping make the planet more inclusive and greener.
Thank you so much, Gayathri. And I join the colleague, the organizer of this summit, Radhika, on complimenting both you and Sam for sharing your very touching personal stories with us, which are very inspirational. And as I actually just came back from the Boao Forum for Asia, where is organized in Hainan Island of China, and many people are talking about that island, Boao as a Eastern Hawaii, very beautiful. But I think what really strikes me is the finding of a major report was released 2 days ago called Sustainable Asia and the World, where the report highlighted 4 major deficits, especially Asia are facing today, including digital deficit, green deficit, healthcare deficit, and infrastructure deficit. And I'm sure that nobody will be surprised. On top of the list is healthcare issues. And I'm so happy, Gayathri, you mentioned about your company's, hard work in combating malaria in India. But we cannot at the same time ignore the fact that it's very heartbreaking news yesterday that India has reported more than 300,000 COVID cases in past 24 hours, is really the highest daily global total. So I was wondering, so how, what private sector in India and across the world can do, to really help deal with this situation? Is your previous investment in malaria be helpful, for the communities to deal with COVID?
Yeah, thanks for that, Meng. Yeah, India is definitely struggling and reeling under the under the spread of COVID-19 at the moment, and I won't lie, it's a bad situation. We've seen actually a lot of collaboration amongst private sector, government, civil society, which has been the most important through our last wave of COVID. So we've seen immense amounts of collaboration amongst different players in actually helping the government and the nation deal with this crisis, which for us, since last year, March, has been, a public health crisis. It's been a humanitarian crisis and an economic crisis. I think everyone has seen the sorts of images, last year of migrants walking back home and so on. Most of India, like I said, works in the in the informal sector, there's a lot of daily wage labor. So there's huge amounts of job and income loss. So there are a number of ways in which specifically private sector can help. The approach we took last year involved looking at, a number of layers. One was obviously our immediate community being our employees and ensuring health and safety of all of our people. We extended that into our value chain. So we, the COVID insurance that we had secured for all employees and their dependents, we extended that to everybody in our supply chain. So distributors, transporters, sales agents, they're not, they're not our direct employees, etc. We even worked with suppliers that needed the help. This was, this was across our agri and our FMCG concerns. We also have a very large real estate business, and one of the biggest impacts was on migrant workers within, work on our sites. And so, we had a full sort of humanitarian response involving providing food, ensuring they had cell phone top-ups to be able to call their families back home so they weren't worried. There were medical checks and camps and so on. For once the public transport system restarted after the lockdown last year, we sort of extended help in getting them train tickets and bus tickets back home when they wanted to go. And and so that was one big piece. So the entire sort of value chain really. And then we looked obviously at the layer of our communities. So we're spread across the country in pretty much every state of India, and so ensuring that these communities were well taken care of. And then finally came, local authorities, state governments that we worked with to provide critical protective gear, PPE kits, masks, sanitizers. We make soap and hand wash as well. So that was, like visa essential during the pandemic. So we're continuing the same approach through this second wave. I think what's critical at the moment is really increasing the capacity of our healthcare system, things like ICU beds, ventilators, oxygen cylinders, and so on. So we're doing all that we can as a business to make sure that all of these layers of our country that we interact with are supported through this time.
Thanks so much, Gayathri. And I wonder, Sam, do you want to add anything, especially from a technology perspective, about COVID response and how we can leverage technology to help?
Sure, definitely. I think, first of all, thank you, Gayathri, for sharing what your company is doing. I think it is a tremendous help at the time of need. I think definitely the data that we are seeing, and also, the things that we are helping them, with the reaching the supplies and reaching the help at the right places is important. That's where the technologies can be used to pinpoint where exactly is needed, what kind of help that needed with observation that we have, insights that you have. That would be really helpful there. And other thing that I'm going to look at that is, one thing is the health. All of us needs to stand up and do that. The other thing that we really have to look at that is how we can help economically as well. So if you look at that, if you look at the pandemic, it's really unprecedented. I think nobody knows how to solve this, how to get to that. And this is definitely a challenge for all of us. As I look at the data as a data guy, and also the technologies, I'm excited to see how we can help the world with the data that we can observe, and especially with the visa data that we have the tremendous difference that we can make with the amount of data. We are at a global scale, and in more countries and more currencies that compared to the other payment systems, our data provide a clear understanding of not only change of economics, but also customer behavior, what is happening where. Those are the things that we can bring to the table to help them in. If we can put the data along with the health data, we can make some real-time and decision-making. So definitely bring the data there is going to help in a big way.
Thank you so much, Sam. And I wonder, we talked about, also about developed market and also gaps between developed markets and also emerging and less developed markets. So I wonder, how can you share your perspective about how technology can really fill the gap for financial inequality, especially for less developed countries?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Meng. I think that's an interesting way to look at that. Financial equality, we are currently witnessing unparalleled challenges in the global economy. Not only in the developing countries or less developed countries, but in general, this is the global challenge as a result of pandemic. Let's focus a little bit on the developing countries. There are many areas that we can help with the technology in those countries, but let's, for this discussion, maybe we can focus on small and micro businesses, SMBs. And why SMBs? These are the SMBs are the backbone of communities, providing livelihoods and jobs around the world. And if I remember right, according to the World Bank data, SMBs accounts for more than 90% of global businesses in those countries, nearly 60% of global employment, and around 60% of GDP in those developing countries. And they have been the one hit really, really hard with this pandemic. And most countries, we are seeing the store closing rates 4 times higher in 2020 compared to the same time 2019. And I'm sure the numbers would be even worse in 2021. I don't have the latest data. And and also who got hit really hard are the ones worn by women, minorities, and underserved communities. That's where the most impacts are. And Gayathri, you may probably have the latest information. In India, if you look at that, there are 63 million SMBs, and that accounts for 1/3 of the GDP. And I'm sure majority of them are in the rural places where it's hit really, really hard. And they may probably look like a stats, but behind the stats are real people. Their lives are impacted, and families that depend on those businesses are impacted. And if you look at a small business in the rural places in those developing countries, the whole family or families are impacted by this if they get impacted. And now let's talk about what Visa is doing. As a company, we are doubling down on our support for micro businesses by enabling them digitally. Becoming digitally enabled, SMEs can rebuild stronger, more competitive, and become resilient as they recover from this pandemic and beyond. In June, Visa announced a global goal to digitally enable 50 million small and micro businesses during the global recovery. We're making good progress on those. As part of the efforts, I'm going to give a good example, Meng, if you don't mind, we did a study on Mexico. Mexico, 45% of the Mexico's GDP, and that contributes is SMB. They contribute 68% of the employment. And when we did the survey of how many of them are digitally enabled, can accept debit card or credit card, any form of digital payment, was only 18%. So that kind of motivated us to go how we can enable those folks. Then later on, we did a recent survey of the small businesses. 2/3 of them are first time they are accepting digital payments. And interestingly, this is a big win for them. 75% of those SMBs who surveyed have an increase in their monthly revenue. That's a good thing. And 72%, they said, hey, our customers are spending more as we are accepting digital payments. And 76% said, hey, we have an improved business because of this. So this is a simple digital enablement of the small and micro businesses is making a big difference. In addition to that, there's a couple of things, I'll close that with this. A couple of things that we are doing is besides focus on some of the strategic initiatives, some online education, online resource centers. If you go to Visa, then you can see the Visa Small Business Hub that helps people how they can manage their business, how they can accept digital payments, how they can make it easier, and also practical business skills website. That's something that a lot of people are making use of that skills. And also we are partnering with organizations like, I'm sure all of you are familiar with that, I Found Women, to provide grants and digital training to the US-based Black women-owned small businesses. There are many areas that we have. We're scratching the surface. We have a lot more to do. We'll continue on the mission on that. Meng, that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sam. I clearly got several key messages from your sharing and also previously from Gayathri. Is that first, the global collaboration is key to tackle any global issues and the problem. And also the collaboration between countries and also across sectors and across different stakeholders are crucial to ensuring our success. Also, Sam, thank you for pointing out the importance of empowering vulnerable groups, including women, children, people in extreme poverty, and also the SMEs. So I'm very happy to share that with a new global strategy that's spearheaded by the UN Secretary General as our global board chair, and also our CEO and the executive director, Mrs. Senda Ojambo, the UN Global Compact. In our 2023 strategy, we will also put more emphasis on building capacity for SMEs. And we look forward to join force with companies with like-minded, like Visa and others, to together empower the small and medium enterprises to also join this journey to accelerate SDGs together. So I think in the previous discussion, we talk about healthcare, we talk about financial inclusion. Let's move on to climate issues. And I think recently it's quite encouraging to see that after Mr. John Kerry's visit to Shanghai, the world's two biggest emitters, the US and China, came into agreement to collaborate on climate issues. So, and I also noticed that Gayathri, you mentioned earlier about your company is utilizing science-based targets on dealing with climate issues. Could you please share more on climate methods that you are taking to address climate issues?
Yeah. So, I think the pandemic has really accelerated our understanding as a global community that Black Swan events are going to occur, and they're probably going to be a lot, the effects of them are probably going to be a lot harsher when they're climate-related events. We're already seeing a number of countries and regions which are suffering from sudden climate shocks, sudden changes in whether it's monsoon patterns, flooding, drought, and fires, and so on. So I think one thing that, one positive outcome, I suppose, of this pandemic has really been reinforcing that messaging, because we've lived as a global community through the consequences of something that we didn't foresee, which pretty much brought the world economy, and community to a standstill. So, I think that's been a very powerful message. I think the time for obviously climate action is now. We can't wait any longer. A few things that I think, especially in the context of business, that really sort of merit being said. Investments in climate, in climate positive technologies, in repurposing in manufacturing and operations and so on, and making them less harmful for the environment. These investments have always been seen as a cost, right? But they're not. In the short term pay off for themselves pretty quickly. There's, kinds of cost savings we've seen, and that's how we track it to continuously ensure that, as a business, we're motivated to invest in it. Is we track the savings year on year from our transitions to renewable technologies, and they are significant. The cost of right now, sort of adapting adapting for climate action is going to be far less than the cost of mitigation when disasters occur. So I think these have been, some sort of key, key learnings for us. It's, again, I'll be honest, going down this route, taking on this journey is not easy. Science is constantly changing. There are always news to explore. And so there's, this continual improvement. The data is changing all the time. There is a huge need for more consolidated, meaningful data that will enable better decision-making on climate action for business leaders. There are a huge number of indicators and ESG, environmental social governance standards, frameworks and indicators out there. And I think somewhere, organizations like World Economic Forum have been working towards, bringing these together into a more sort of comprehensive, set of disclosures that make it a little bit easier to do this kind of reporting and be more transparent about, about businesses' impacts on environment and society. There's an index called MSCI, which is, one of the leading indices in the world looking at ESG parameters. And, everyone should look at their website because the data there is clear. Companies that do well on ESG and perform well on ESG have outperformed the market even through the pandemic. So I think the case for it for all of us is really clear. Our investors want this. The consumers want this, and will eventually be voting with their dollars and rupees, as the case may be. And I think we, somewhere more than anything, it's the right thing to do, and the responsible thing to do, to place people and planet alongside profit.
Great, thank you so much, Gayathri. Why don't we end, as we approaching the end of this session, why don't we end with a very encouraging news from Sam? Because I noticed that yesterday, Visa just made an announcement to become net zero emissions by 2040. Sam, do you want to share some insider stories about this?
Sure, thank you, Meg. Thanks for noticing that. And we are incredibly proud of what we are doing here for the climate change and how we can prevent that and how we can help in that. And as one of the leading global payment company, Visa is positioned to use the power of our huge network that we have to create a more sustainable payment ecosystem. This is a statement about it's an engine of commerce to be engine of a sustainable commerce, including the climate as well. This is a good example for that. Yes, we have announced this week, sustainability commitment for us and our milestone. I'll cover that in three bullets very quickly. One, first, Visa is announcing it has achieved carbon neutrality across operations, which is very important through that we have to get that through our efficiency that we can bring into our engine or the network that we have. As you can imagine, it's a pretty massive network that spans across the globe, and we need to bring in efficiency there. And also we are getting the renewable electricity and with a limited offsets. And this is a commitment that we are keeping going forward. The second thing is Visa is committing to do net zero emission by 2040. Remember, this is 2050 is the goal with the Paris Accord climate agreement timeframe. This is 10 years ahead of that. And I'm sure all of us know what is net zero emission mean. It's not only you, your value chain, everybody else also. Together, it is going to be neutral there. That is the second part. The third is, it's quite interesting. If you think about that, Visa is expanding initiative to use its products and services, network and data and payment expertise. That's what gives me goosebumps about what we can do as a technology and data here and its brand to support sustainable commerce and transitioning into a low carbon economy. How do we do that? When we make a purchase, if we can tell you what is the CO2 that is potentially going to be used to get the product that you are maybe ordering online to your doorsteps. And what are the different options that you have when you're buying that in terms of shipment? What are the options where you can buy? If we can do all this kind of information, we can leave that at the hands of the consumers, then make the choice, not only look for a best price, but also best thing for the planet Earth. I think that is really do that. It's a very simple thing that we are trying to do here is we are partnering with the companies that do the plastics that you have a Visa card that is more of upcycled material rather than the plastic from the scratch. So those are the kind of things that we are doing. And also we are supporting the sustainable behavior such as urban mobility. As you can see, 400 transit agencies now uses.
I am so sorry to jump in, Sam, Meng. We really need to wrap up because we are well into the break and we have a lot of people waiting on them. Really sorry to but as Summit co-chair, I'll jump in. We are well over time.
Sure, so, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry to do this, Sam, Meng, but we need to immediately wrap up because we only have 7 minutes or so left of the break now.
Okay, so no problem.
Thank you.
And thank you, Rathika, and also the co-organizers, Anuhi, Lucas. I think, you can see our panelists have many enthusiasts to talk about more. So this is to be continued. Yeah. This is just the start of the conversation. So really looking forward to work closely with every one of you to accelerate our joint goals, the SDGs. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Gayathri.
Thank you for an amazing panel.